Worried about her. I think she's just going to break and tuck in somewhere mid-division, I would think. So really that important that she was left on the outside. I probably would have preferred to have my post positions reversed, but I don't think it should really bother her a whole lot.
Doug, strategy-wise, do you see a lot of men on the lead in this race?
You know, it's such a, I guess like all these big races, they're jockey races, and Corey knows Lava Man so well, and you know, we definitely have the speed to kind of leave there running and then kind of play it by ear. So really haven't dissected the form since the posts have been drawn, but I know our goal leaving there will be to send them away from there and just kind of, it's in Corey's hands from there.
Work. And what is the most important and
is he working right now?
important advice that your dad gave you? And is this the same business that you got into?
Oh, I mean, it obviously entails a lot of hours. I mean, I would say these guys feel the same way. I mean, I think as a trainer, basically you're responsible 24 hours a day. So just because you leave the barn doesn't necessarily mean that the night man's not going to call, you know. So to me, it's a 24-hour-a-day job, and it's basically 365 days a year. Even when you take a few days off, you're still responsible. So I think the game's changed tremendously, you know, even since I started training 10 years ago. But when you go back to when my dad was training, and you know, I mean, just the communication process has changed so much. And I mean, there's times where the clockers are posting workout times on the internet as they're happening, and you got owners that are calling you know, at 8:30 want to know how their horse worked. And you know, I mean, it's a different information age, and everybody wants to know what's going on. And so it just, you know, it creates a lot more responsibility in terms of the communication part of it.
Did he give you one piece of advice that holds true now?
No, I mean, you know, I think just more than anything is that, you know, his demeanor, he's kind of laid back and takes everything in stride. And I think, you know, ultimately you have to be able to do that as a trainer, because you're going to have as many ups as downs, or probably the other way around. So you got to try to keep an even keel, or you'll drive yourself crazy.
Well, this has been billed as the best of the West beating the best of the East, and all of a sudden you become the third choice. Were you slighted by it? How did you feel?
Not really. I mean, bottom line, we still have a former claimer who hasn't won outside of California, and you know, we still have to prove ourselves. And you know, Bernardini's not only been impressive in New York, but Florida and Maryland, and he's royally bred, and so you know, we like what we're bringing. That we think Lava Man's doing exceptional, but we realize on numbers and our prior outside of California trips, you know, we got a lot to prove, but hopefully we'll be okay.
So confident in your horse, you know, you've said that he stacks up against any horse you've been around, Cigar among them. Are you going to wake up Saturday morning and absolutely feeling you're going to win this race, or will there be any sort of doubts in your mind?
Well, I don't ever, you know, get overconfident in any situation or any race. I feel confident that the horse is doing well, and if he goes out there and just runs his few races that he's been running back to back, I feel pretty confident going into the race.
And Tommy, a follow-up question is: the unknowns in here are the European horses. Again, you've had so much experience in Europe. What do you feel about George Washington, David Jr., and are they horses to fear?
Well, they certainly established themselves as top horses in Europe, but I think the question always remains if they're going to handle the dirt.
Todd, just to clarify something you said earlier, you said you didn't know if you want to do this the rest of your life. Do you mean train at this level or train?
Well, I mean, I don't think I want to have 200 horses for the rest of my life. At some point, you might want to slow down. I'm not saying that's anytime soon. I'm just, you know, I mean, it wouldn't be a job for everybody, you know. I mean, it's obviously, you know, a lot goes into it. So, yeah, I mean, at some point, you'd think you're going to take a step back, but when that is, I have no idea.
Races where you have more than one horse. Without going through horse by horse, how did you match up your jockeys with your horses in those races where you have multiple entries?
Well, for the most part, they're ridden by the guy that's been riding them, you know, and Gomez, for example, has been riding Wait a While and Octave, and so that's how that worked out. In the case of the two horses, Go Deputy and Quiet Royal, that belong to the Wertheimers, Olivier Pele is their contract rider in France, and so they wanted him to come over and ride their horses. And he'd been riding Quiet Royal, so obviously John Velasquez was already committed to English Channel. And so, I mean, for the most part, it was pretty straightforward. The only one that was a little bit tricky was who was going to ride in the Classic, and once we worked all that out, then, you know, Johnny stayed on the horse that he'd been riding.
You wish there was a turf race at 1.25 miles. Obviously, that's not an option, but you're going 1.5 miles. What has English Channel shown you throughout his 3 and now 4-year-old year that makes you ready for the 12 furlongs? And can you also mention what Go Deputy showed you at Woodbine to take a chance here?
Well, with English Channel, I mean, I think he showed us in the Turf Classic what we needed to see. You know, I mean, it was a big win at 1.5 miles, and finished up really well. So I'd be less concerned about that than I would have been, you know, right after the Woodford Reserve. And he also won the United Nations at 1 3/8, so I'd probably feel a little more comfortable at 1.5 miles right now than I would 1.25 miles. As far as Go Deputy, I mean, he ran fantastic in Canada. The only tricky part is coming back in 13 days, and, you know, we're just trying to see how the horse came out of the race. And so far, it seems like he's come back well. Obviously, it's asking